And,
Hello.
and it's okay that we record our meeting and put it on YouTube.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. All right. And Hugh, you've been with me for a number of months since, well, you started in August. So we've got going on 6 months.
Yes.
Excellent. It takes a great effort and trust to do what you are doing and a desire for something. Now, you were involved with Gurdjieff groups for over 20, about 20 years, off and on. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And one of the ideas that they express is that not to express negative emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Why would they suggest that?
Well, negative emotions can be a destructive thing, and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So what did they how did you what did you do with your what would be a negative emotion?
Well, anger would be a negative emotion.
Okay. All right. So what would you do with anger?
Well, uh, they said not to express them, but there was no real follow up about what to do with it. It was almost as though you were being asked to suppress them.
Okay, that's it. That's what I was looking for. And most teachings, even if you go into yoga or go into some kind of metaphysical teachings, um, um, and follow these so-called spiritual leaders that have a lot of good ideas. And I think Eckhart Tolle is excellent. However, this, they have a similar idea is that emotions are not good. Um, and some of these religious groups suggest that you want to suppress your desires. Now, Spinoza, he has a part in part three of the Ethics, explains the idea of emotions. And he says this exactly. He says, let me look at the part that says this on the emotions. He says, on the origin and nature of the emotions. And on page 128, he begins to talk about, he says this, it's so beautiful and clear. He says, most writers on the emotions and on human conduct seem to be treating rather of matters outside nature than of natural phenomenon, following nature's general laws. They appear to conceive man to be situated in nature as a kingdom within a kingdom, for they believe that he disturbs rather than follows nature's order, and that he has absolute control over his actions, and that he is determined solely by himself. They attribute human infirmities and fickleness not to the power of nature in general, but to some mysterious flaw in the nature of man, which accordingly they bemoan, deride, despise, or as usually happens, abuse. He who succeeds in hitting off the weaknesses of the human mind more eloquently or more acutely than his fellows is looked upon as a seer. Spinoza's chapter, or say part three of of his ethics, there are 5 parts. Part three is about the emotions, and the idea is how to understand the emotions. Because as we begin to understand how the anger, for example, do you remember the definition of anger?
Anger is trying to destroy the cause of the anger, whether it's coming from a person or trying to shut them down, get
Exactly.
rid of the pain.
Excellent. And that basically what you're saying is the essence of anger. Anger is desire to remove the pain any way possible. And some individuals who are afraid of confrontation, they will just shut the person out and never speak to them again, or just walk away. If you're married, you just kind of go into your return, you'll go into your a private area and just ignore that person for a few days. But however, what is anger? Anger, again, as you said, is the essence of it, is to remove the cause of our pain. The fact that anger feels pain. And so the definition is anger is desire. We want something. Anger is desire, whereby through hatred, so involves hatred, whereby we are induced to remove or destroy the object of our hate or of our pain. So then if there's anger is desire and hate, what is hate? Do you remember the definition of hate?
Hate is the pain, associating the pain with somebody else being the cause of that pain.
Okay, someone is the cause of your pain. Excellent. You're absolutely right. So we believe, so we feel pain. For instance, I had an experience today, and I was coming home from this Costco, and I do this on Tuesdays, and I was on the freeway, and the traffic was very slow, slowing down, and this car just almost crashed into me because their lane no longer began to, it began to, those signs on the road saying you must yield into the next lane because that lane no longer will exist. And so this person just cut in front of me, and I had to quickly stop. And I found I began to honk the horn several times with anger. And I began to imagine, I imagined it was a woman. It may have been a man, but I imagined it was a woman. And I was thinking about and I can see how road rage is stimulated by interfering with another one, someone else's progression. Now, so what am I observing is how I responded to this situation. And my way of responding is to honk the horn, and this was all automatic. I didn't think of it; it just happened so quickly. And I was observing myself, but also I was lost in my anger and my emotion. And I began to imagine crashing into that person and teach him a lesson. And then imagining going to court and fighting this person and winning. So this is how the imagination deals with this problem. But I began to reflect on that, and I thought, wow, how does anger come up? Why would it come up? Yes, the fact is I was frightened, and I believe, and this person has free will, that freely to choose what they're doing. I have no idea what's going on that person had. It may have been, I just don't know. Might have been very much in a hurry, and realized that didn't want to stop where they were, just continue going and move into the traffic in the next lane, but there was no room. However, I had to stop and allow her to go in. Otherwise, I would have smashed into her. However, in our imagination, we do a lot of things. We imagine confronting that person, slapping that person, wrecking their car, going to court, and so on. But what is the nature of anger again? So we wanted to remove our pain. And what is our pain? Is the reality of our pain. Well, even before pain, there's hate. Well, hate it describes what you exactly said, is that we believe that person is the cause of my pain. So we want to remove that person. We want to destroy that person. So hate is also a desire to destroy that person because they're the cause of our pain. But what is pain? And pain, and this is what we normally avoid. What is the definition of pain? Do you remember?
Right. Pain is a feeling of helplessness, of not knowing what to do in a situation, with a feeling of loss of power.
Loss of power. Excellent. And you can see that you've learned the emotions, you know the definitions, and you know what they mean. And so And this last loss of power, feeling powerless, helpless, not knowing what to do, and that is the reality. There's an excellent video I mentioned to you and others. Louis C.K. Right now, he's a hilarious comedian, but he did some things that were really not good. But yet, I kept his video, and the video is about how he addresses um, pain and loneliness and the need to escape from these feelings. It's about a 4 minute audio video. He was on Conan on a talk host show several years ago, and I kept it. It's on my website. Have you ever looked at it? You ever seen it?
Yes, I know the video you're talking about. I've
Yeah,
watched it several times. Yeah.
yeah. And what was amazing about Louis C.K. that he used comedy to express human nature, his problems, how he sees problems, and what his experiences. And one of the things that I want to emphasize, and you're learning to do this, the significance of feeling the pain, to surrendering to the pain, uh, and as you surrender, you acknowledge it, and you open up the mind, because the mind, there's two parts to the mind. There's an active part and a, a sleep part, or say a passive part. The active part is our true intelligence. It wants to understand. So when you surrender, you open the gateway towards this intelligence, because intelligence, this active mind, wants to understand. That's its nature. It desires to understand. And the cause and effects of things. Why are we in pain? So it's very evident that at that moment of feeling pain in myself, I quickly go into hate and anger, because uh, that's what we automatically do. But we don't know, we don't want to face, we avoid the real issue is I feel pain, I feel powerless at that moment. It's so quick. So if you could be with your feeling and surrender to your feeling, by the way, how are you doing with that?
I'm getting there slowly. It's a new process for me, and well, I have to keep trying to do it.
Yes. And why is it so difficult? I mean, I think you're making progress. This is wonderful, Hugh, but why do you think it's so difficult?
It's showing an emotion. I get rid of it by kind of going into my mind and thinking it through. Well, you blame someone else, but you kind of you try and get rid of it in some way or other.
Yeah, you want to, you don't, this is what I've learned. Most of my students are highly intellectual, highly living in life, to make a living, to get an education, to learn your language, to be able to function in society. Uh, we must learn, we're not really living, but we're existing. And this type of knowledge, we acquire information. If you're a bright student, uh, you might love to read and study. You might be interested in science or mathematics, or you might become an engineer. If you're an engineer type person, highly intellectual, you'll find that confrontation is very difficult. Getting to social interactions, going to social party, being social is stressful. Why? Because engineers do not know how to small talk. They love talking in technical, abstract ideas, could go into philosophy or anything that, or numbers, or talk about their job. But to talk about just the simple things about family or something on television, or the children, or talk about yourself, and something a little bit deeper about um, your confusions. We don't want to talk about these real things because it's uncomfortable. Most people do not know how to handle emotions. And I think that what you're bringing out with Gurdjieff is that they don't know what to do with anger. And yet, in Search of the Miraculous, on page 163, Gurdjieff talks about, or it starts with 161, there's a difference between essence and personality. And on page 163, Gurdjieff talks about the idea that we need a person material for growth. Without an ego or a personality, it's impossible to grow. As he says, there would be no motive to grow. So we are stuck, or say we automatically develop an ego, starting from infants, from children, because we learn it from our parents. Our parents live from ego. There's a psychotherapist, a family therapist. Her name is Dr. Shavali. You can find her on YouTube. Have I ever mentioned to her? Have you ever mentioned you to her about her?
I mentioned her, and I've watched her on YouTube. Yes.
What do you think of her?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she seems to talk sense, to say things that are good ideas.
Good ideas. She's so pretty, also. And I remember sharing this with another student of mine, and he was with me for 3 years, and he said he rejected it because he thought I was just interested in the pretty girl, in the pretty woman. She's so very attractive. She brings out something very profound. She says this, that, actually she wrote a book called The Conscious Parent. And she says that parents are unconscious. And they're consequently, and I'll read you something about her, about what she said. Let me get her book. Very simple. She says this. Let me see if I can find something more simple. Traditionally, parenthood has been exercised in a manner that's higher. Well, that's not what I want to read. Let's read something else. Okay, here I go. We are chosen as their parents to help them actualize this. The trouble is that if we don't pay close attention to them, we rob them of their right to live out their destiny. We end up imposing on them our own vision for them, rewriting their spiritual purpose according to our whims. It's no surprise we fail to tune in to our children's essence. How can we listen to them when so many of us barely listen to ourselves? How can we feel their spirit and hear the beat of their heart if we can't do this in our own lives? When we as parents have lost our inner compass, it is any wonder so many children grow up directionless, disconnected, and discouraged. By losing contact with our inner world, we cripple our ability to parent from our essential being in the way conscious parenting requires. She talks about the idea of being a conscious parent, and very few individuals are ever conscious. The idea of being conscious is being in the moment, in the reality of the moment. And it is manifests or expresses this awakened state. Gurdjieff talks about the mind is asleep, but he doesn't say exactly how to awake. He talks about self-observation, which is very good. However, that's not enough. We must learn how to look at oneself without judgment. So as you begin to look at yourself and look at the events, just as I did, look at myself regarding the anger I experienced with this person trying to get cut into my path. and how so automatic this is, and begin to look at the emotions and understand them. This strengthens the mind. Now, you talked about a couple of things you wanted to look at or share. You talked about boredom. What do you mean by
Yeah.
boredom? What is boredom to you?
Well, it was a particular person. There was two incidences. One where they were talking, and it was a conversation I wasn't interested in, but felt unable to escape from the situation. That was the first one, and the second one was actually in a church service with with an address, a sermon, if you like, and again, I wasn't at all going along with what they were saying, and I just wanted to switch off. I was bored.
Okay, very good. Okay, and then you also asked me something about evil.
Yes.
What about evil? What is evil to you?
Evil is doing things that are very, very wrong, hurting other people.
Okay, so what your question is? Why? What would be your question about evil?
Well, so my question is that Spinoza says we do not have free will. If we don't have free will, does that not give anyone who is evil or doing wrong a get out excuse? I can't help it. This is my nature. This is the law of cause and effect.
Okay, very good. And good question. Okay, let's tackle the evil again. Spinoza you're right. He says that there's no free will, but if there's no free will, what is there?
Well, there's the cause and effect situation.
And
Everything, the
and
effect has a cause.
and there's a law of
Several other laws. Law of necessity, law of inertia. Yeah.
the law of necessity. And the other, the law of self-preservation, the law of inertia, the law of cause and effect. You're right. The law of necessity says that it depends on we act according to the knowledge we have. Like the person, I call it a young lady who cut in front of me, might have been a young man who cut in front of me, was following for the law of necessity. It's necessary that the person did. So if I would have crashed into it, there would have been an insurance problem. It wouldn't have been a big major accident, probably a few $1,000s. So Spinoza says that society has the right to punish those who commit crimes. What is a crime? A crime could be even a traffic violation or a hit and run accident. So there are laws in society. Those laws are there to protect human nature from each other. And so that's a law. So you commit a crime, the court has the right to punish that person. It is necessary to punish that person. Spinoza says this, that there is a law of society that we must follow. And it's necessary that you are punished for what you did according to the laws of society. Your excuse, the idea of not having free will is not an excuse. It's just a reality. For instance, when I reacted the way I did, there was no free will. It was a blind anger, a blind reaction. Are you following?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, and what do you think about what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So yeah, so society is the check on misbehavior, as it were.
Yes, society. Yes, exactly. And so, and the individual. Now, there's another set of laws that goes with the spirit of man, the higher consciousness of man. It follows necessarily also an individual who desires to find something that the individual feels that's missing within themselves. They want to feel a purpose. They want to feel more present. They have a sensitivity that more is possible, and they're dissatisfied with their life. You can be 20 years old or 70 years old. I've met my teacher at the age of 30, and I had everything a man would want. A marriage to an attractive woman, a job, I was a hairstylist, I had a beauty salon, I had employees, but yet I was suffering because I found my mind was asleep. Well, I didn't realize it was asleep. I just knew that my mind was very weak. I dropped out of high school, as I mentioned to you and others. And college was out of the questions because I didn't have enough focus and discipline to follow any kind of study, anything that required mental effort. What I was able to do is work with my hands, and I was able to be friendly and have a smile. So I had a good clientele. And so I lived in a small community just south of Los Angeles. And I used to drive one way to my teacher's apartment at that time. It took me about 50 minutes to an hour to get there. So I did that about 2 or 3 times a week. But over time, my ex-wife decided to stop going to these meetings, and I decided I wanted to stay. So we ended up separated, and I ended up leaving everything and to be near my teacher. And I stayed with my teacher for over 20 years. So it's taken me a long time to learn how to develop my thinking, how to come to clarity. And Spinoza has been my foundation to come to truth, to come to reality, and to find the blessedness that people are looking for. So yourself, as you begin to learn more about how you operate and begin to embrace your emotions as you are beginning to do that, you're beginning to learn what it means to love oneself. And what does that look like? To love oneself is to love our effort, love our desire to understand. And the understanding, because I remember when I was a boy and I was learning my multiplications, and I could not understand how, and I put in effort, I didn't understand. It seemed like everybody else all the other students was getting it, and I felt so stupid. And then suddenly I got an aha experience. I see. And that is the awakened state of the mind. We must go back to that state. Because everything, sometimes you say, oh, I don't understand. And then you put in effort. And then you go, I see. I know this is true. And that's the spirit you must take within, looking into Spinoza and especially looking at yourself. We cannot, having judgment of our nature only implies that we believe we have free will. And we want to stop it. It's impossible. We cannot will ourselves to stop emotions. Again, an emotion, which is a passion, is just a confusion of the mind, a confused idea. As we begin to look at the emotion and understand it, confusion disappears and the emotion will become less. How does that sound to you?
Yes, that sounds as though that's right. That's the course I want to follow. Yeah.
That's what you want to follow. Excellent. And so you talked about boredom. Boredom, it just reflects upon ourselves. Our mind is in a passive state. It wants stimulation. You must learn to think. For instance, if you're in a church or listening to a sermon or a talk, you almost want to be prepared. Take your own book, take the ethics, take something you enjoy, or something of a spiritual quality, since you're in a church environment. And I used to take Spinoza into the church sometimes. Sometimes I like to, because the church is a beautiful environment. However, the Catholic Church has a lot of these symbols, and But the environment is really nice. It wants to remind everybody of something deeper within themselves. It helps people remind them that they're not just a product of external achievements. Everybody is after the great job, the great marriage, the great intimacy, the great sex, great this, great that, great food, great restaurants. Very few people have the time to be quiet and be silent and find your spiritual and get in touch with your spiritual nature. You
in the
go ahead.
yeah, in the church service, I did kind of find my own way out of the situation, which I wanted just to chat with you. So I imagined that I was the person at the front giving the sermon, and what would I be saying to them instead? So I tuned out of what the person was saying, and in my own mind invented my own sermon in its place.
Okay, and you felt better about that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's creative. See, so you activate yourself and you're no longer bored. See, boredom is a sleep state. It just says that I want to be stimulated by something outside, which everybody wants. Everybody wants to be entertained. But very few people know how to entertain their own, not entertain, but say activate the thinking to come to clarity, to come to truth. All right, so we're going to stop this and I'm going to hold on. Don't go away. So I'm just going to stop this recording for right now. But thank you very much for doing this with me today.